Well, good morning. I'd like you to do a little experiment this morning. I'd like to share this with you because my Unity mentor, Robert Brummett, shared it with me recently, and it was really, really helpful. So close your eyes, please, and think of the sky. On a sunny, beautiful day, the blue, blue sky. It's a beautiful blue sky out there, and there are clouds, white, fluffy, cumulus clouds. But concentrate on the blue, blue sky between the clouds, where the sun is shining through. You know the clouds are there, but your focus is on the space between the clouds. That space is the eternal present. Nothing is obscuring it. Just be here now and enjoy this space, this clear blue space between the clouds. Now, when you are ready, open your eyes and try to remember that feeling of this unobscured present between the clouds. That place is like the fourth dimension, the place where the clouds of fear and negativity and worry and doubts are not obscuring your sky, your life. The clouds may be there, yes, and you're aware of it, but they aren't affecting you. You are in that space between them where you just note, perhaps, that the clouds are there, but they don't bother you. Those clouds are your thoughts and your feelings. You notice that they're there, and you might even at some point choose to investigate them a bit and try to understand them and thus dissipate them. But they are like the clouds that are there, but you're living between them in the clear part of the sky. That is what reality is. That's your reality, that's my reality. That is what is possible all the time. That's what being in the world, but not of it, is like. You don't let your programmed thoughts and your feelings that are there affect the way you live. They're there, yes, you can note them, you can know that they're there. They got programmed there somewhere back when you were a child maybe, but unwelcomed or negative thoughts are just feelings that are like those clouds in the sky, but you don't have to be in the clouds. You are in the clear space where the sun is shining through. For the last few weeks, we've been talking here about how Lent can be a time of spiritual growth and evolution, a time when we learn better how to really be in the world but not of it. Now, ideally, of course, we would do that all year long, and I think most of us do. But Lent is that special time when we have even the support of our environment. And I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that. A lot of people out there have given up things for Lent, and they talk about it. If you offer them something and they've given it up, they say, I gave it up for Lent. So it's a time when it's really a little easier to make special efforts to blend our human self with what we call God, and thus lift ourselves to a higher, purer, more spiritual state, a state where we aren't bothered by those clouds out there, the clouds of what's happening or what we're thinking or feeling. This higher state is symbolized by the crucifixion of our earthly material self and our resurrection to a higher self at the time of Easter. Now, we've been talking about how the two time-tested Lenten tools of fasting and praying can have a profound effect on our spiritual evolution so that we can resurrect to that higher state, a state where we are free of the world's chaos and fears and worries and all kinds of suffering. The two primary Lenten tools are the fasting and praying, of course. Now, fasting, as we have discussed, can help us remember on a regular basis our goals every time we have an urge to partake in whatever it was that we chose to give up for Lent. Fasting can also help us develop an inner resolve and strength that we can then use to stay on our path at times when we might feel pulled in a different direction. It helps us accomplish whatever we might desire. Praying involves going into the silence. Many incredible things can come out of this, of course. It puts us in direct contact with Spirit. This means we become a part of the interconnectedness of all things, of all life. We are connected with all life. We just don't always realize it. We're connected with the entire universe all the time. Thus, we access the power, the intelligence, and the presence of what we call God, this omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence of the universal source. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore calls this state the fourth dimension. Heaven on earth, same thing. That is our natural state, he says, and one that we all have access to, but we don't always plug into it. Through the silence, through meditation, through prayer, we do plug into the fourth dimension. It can't be described with words, and there are a million intellectual reasons why we can doubt that it even exists, and I think we've probably all heard them. But when we stop our monkey minds and get quiet, we can validate it for ourselves. It's there. It's a state of being, it's a consciousness, it's peace, and we can all have it. We know when we're there. We just know. We resonate with a completely different vibration, which helps us see everything on the whole physical plane completely differently, everyone and everything, without filters. We see what's really there. We see the truth of what's there. Most of the time, we're just seeing with our filters. In the Bible, the prophet Samuel, one of the judges of Israel, learned to access this still, small voice within. Thus, he understood. Samuel knew how to live and how to judge aright on the physical plane. Now, Samuel means instructed by God. Samuel was dedicated to living on the higher levels. Now, metaphysically, Samuel represents the power of discernment and judgment within each one of us, the part of us that can identify the higher levels of life. Going into the silence allows us to live and rule our lives with this justice and power and righteousness that Samuel did. That Samuel part of us. That is the part of us that can do those things. Now, the challenge, Charles Fillmore says, is to train the mind to listen to this still small voice within, like Samuel did. Samuel said, "Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Thy servant heareth." When we go into the silence in prayer, that is what we're doing. We are making servants of our ego and allowing our higher self to live our lives. Symbolically, the ego is the symbol of that in us that wants to be separate from God, separate from other people, and separate from our higher self. The ego just wants to go its own way and do its own thing. Now, our higher self is that in us which lives in accordance with universal truth. It's the part of us that realizes its unity with all of life and with everyone. The result of going to that fourth dimension state is that we can start using its power to manifest on the physical plane what we accessed on the higher planes. It's kind of like harnessing and using atomic energy. It's been there forever, but we didn't maybe know about it years ago, and we certainly didn't use it. In this fourth dimension, or kingdom of heaven state, we can start seeing with what is called Christ vision. That is, we see reality clearly, not through our filters. Maybe we're able to see things like our own mechanicality and programming and thus get free of it. We can see what the filters are doing and how it's obscuring reality and creating illusion out there and thus making us miserable. Maybe we see how we are judging ourselves, how we're judging others, which puts us out of sync with peace and joy. We start seeing goodness and purity and hope and possibilities, where before we judged and we feared and we suffered because of it. So being in the kingdom of heaven, or in this state of enlightenment, is when we are free of our judgments of everything and everyone. We are no longer upset by what's out there. Now, that doesn't mean we might not want to change things, but we don't suffer because of it. We just keep making lemonade out of lemons, so to speak. Thinking right is a product of Fillmore's fourth dimension, this Garden of Eden in us. He says it's as usable as atomic energy, a higher vibration. It's that state in which everything turns out right, no matter what the outer situation. Fillmore tells us that we are three-part beings. We were talking about this in the Yogananda Sunday School class today. In Hinduism, it's primordial wisdom. We are spirit. Remember, we're all three. We're spirit, or the realm of ideas, absolute truth. Secondly, we are those ideas in thought form. And thirdly, we are the thought form manifested in visibility, in reality. That is the metaphysical meaning of Genesis in the Bible, when it says that God created man in his own image. God is absolute spirit, but in us, the realm of ideas. Then these ideas take mental form in us, and then they are manifested and made visible in our daily lives. For example, there's an absolute idea of love and peace. Then we incorporate that idea into our thought system by thinking of how we can create love and peace in our lives, and in our relationships, maybe through forgiveness. Then we put the idea into form by maybe offering someone an apology or flowers. When we contact the fourth dimension, the realm of ideas, we start giving those ideas form in our minds, and then we start manifesting these ideas on the physical plane. That's why the Bible says in Genesis that God created man in his own image. That's what we do all the time. We are constantly creating our world according to our own mind's images. That's why it is so important to give our minds regular vacations in the fourth dimension. Otherwise, we end up being slaves to our thoughts and our conditioning. We can't appreciate the clear blue sky because all we're doing is noticing the clouds. What Fillmore refers to as scientific prayer, or going into the silence, which he did an hour every night, allows contact with this so-called fourth dimension so that we can live in our inner Garden of Eden, where nothing can destroy our harmony. We are no longer vulnerable. We are no longer dependent on other people and outer circumstances for our inner peace. This is the peace that passeth all understanding. This is the wisdom that helps us see truly the divine order of things, as it says in Course of Miracles. There is a divine order of things. We just can't see it usually. Observing the silence allows us to stop our monkey minds long enough to see what we're doing and work on getting free from this inner slavery. And that's what it is. It's slavery of reacting constantly to life. And it's really not reacting to life, it's reacting to our projections of what that life is. We want to be at cause. We don't want to be at effect. This is how we live in the world, but not of it. Those things are going on out there. People are saying and doing whatever. And we're aware of it. We don't have our heads in the sand, but it's not affecting us. We rise above the mechanical realm to the fourth dimension, which is our inner Garden of Eden. This is one reason why during Lent it is hoped that we will avail ourselves of the tool of prayer, this going into the silence. Prayer and meditation help us go beyond the material and the mental planes to this fourth dimension, which Fillmore says is a dimension of spiritual atomic power. It helps us heal mind and body by letting go of the programming that continually says things like, and these are the clouds out there, constantly saying things like, you are not okay. Others are not okay. The world is not okay. Look at all these things that are happening. And because nothing is okay, we stress out and react in inappropriate ways, or we suffer. We want to get free of all that, and we can, because that's not the reality that is available to us. On the other hand, what happens when we access this still, small voice within, this inner Garden of Eden? Our lives become peaceful. Would it be wonderful to reach the place where every word is a prayer, every action is a spiritual ceremony, and every event and person becomes a teacher, and every day is a holiday because we enjoy it so much? This is possible. It's up to us. It's a choice. Anyway, in the last Lenten lesson, which is today's lesson, because next week we will have a guest speaker, and then there's Palm Sunday and Easter, so this is really our last Lenten lesson. I just wanted to especially remind you of the very powerful tool of prayer and meditation, or going into the silence, in order to give your soul a rest. I'm sure you've all had hard times when you just wanted to be alone and recoup, right? You instinctively know what you need. Well, give your soul an extra dose of rest during the rest of Lent. Nourish yourself. Allow yourself to make contact with the infinite, this fourth dimension, this kingdom of heaven on earth. It's what nourishes you so that you can live in the world but not be of it. You can enjoy the clear skies of life and remain there, even if there are clouds all around, and even if the other people are only noticing the clouds. An hour a day is wonderful to do this, but 20 minutes is fine. Or if you're a beginner, 5 minutes can do wonders. Just give yourself that gift. And how are you doing with the other Lenten tool of fasting? Is anybody going like that? From negative thoughts? Are you fasting from negative thoughts, and like impatience, worry, fear, doubt, self-condemnation, criticism, judgments, for example? Are you sometimes remembering to do that? I don't see a lot of people going like that. You're honest, huh? Turn all that over to God. Remember, don't struggle yourself with that. That's your ego trying to deal with it. Don't try to do it. It doesn't work very well. Turn all those things over to God. When you're struggling with them, just keep reminding yourself to ask God to help you see them differently. When you see differently with your Christ vision, you get free of those thoughts that separate you from others and from your good or God and your true self. Thus, you are restored once again to your inner Garden of Eden. You are able to live in the world but not be of it, unaffected by outer events. You're in the clear blue sky. The clouds are there. You're not bothered by them. Lent is a time to nurture spiritual values. It's when we can again align ourselves with truth, which is that we are all one in God. This time of Lent is when we prepare ourselves for that symbolic resurrection of Easter. It's what Charles Fillmore calls the miracle of consciousness, a transforming of water into wine and our thoughts. We can start seeing through the negative illusions that we are constantly projecting out there. Illusions about the state of the world, people who make us unhappy, and the clouds of negativity. They're all just clouds in the sky. Sure, people say the things that bother us. Sure, the things are happening out there that are bothering us, but we don't have to suffer because of them. Remember last week the story of the man who planted trees? You all remember the story? Elzéar Bouffier, remember, was unaware of World War I and World War II. Now, this was not literal, of course. That would hardly have been possible for anyone living in France. The wars symbolized the negative aspects of life, which Elzéar was totally unaware of. So he just kept on doing good. He planted trees and he changed everything around him for the better, and he brought joy and health and beauty, where before all had been barren, dry, and miserable. So those clouds, World War I and II, symbolically in literature, represent all those things that really make other people suffer. And there are some horrible things out there, but we are able, if we just keep coming back to our inner Garden of Eden, to the fourth dimension, we can start seeing those things as events that we deal with, try to stop maybe, try to change maybe, but we don't have to suffer. In fact, we actually add to the suffering when we don't try to see things on a different level, a level of truth. It's all in divine order. Elzéar Bouffier was in the world but not of it. He lived in the fourth dimension, an inner Garden of Eden, and outwardly he produced a forest of beautiful trees. The wars were going on. This, of course, is symbols, but they were going on. He was unaware of them. He knew probably factually they were there, like we know the clouds are there, but he just kept on producing good no matter what. And this beautiful plantation of trees was left because of him. This is the state that we can all live in. We can all be unaffected by the negative forces out there. We can all live in the world, but not of it. We really can. It's all good. It's all God. There's only one power and one presence in the universe, God the Omnipotent. And one of the best ways to access this level of reality is to fast from negativity, the negativity that we're all programmed to see. and just go within and pray. Go into the silence where we can see, be aware of the peace and love and beauty of what is, and not the disturbances that we think are out there, which has nothing to do with putting our heads in the sand and not recognizing the things that need to be changed. But ultimately, it's all good. It's sort of like this week, there was one night I could not sleep to save my life. I had slept 2 hours and I just could not fall asleep. And I was reacting so negatively. I can't do this. I don't have time for this. I've got to go teach in the morning. And, I was going through all this negative stuff. All I saw were the clouds. And then all of a sudden I thought, wait a minute, I'm not applying the unity principles here. And I thought, oh, yes. And I asked to see it differently. And almost instantaneously, which does not always happen, suddenly I saw this as an opportunity. And I thought, oh, I have not given my soul a really long rest in a long time. And I meditated for hours. And I can tell you, I was transformed by the next morning. And I realized I've been praying for this kind of transformation for a long time. I was given the opportunity, but I was, and all of a sudden, when I just went with it and tried to see the divine order of things, I saw it. It was so obvious. It was everything I've been looking for a long time. And everything is like that. These events happen. It could have just been a horrible sleepless night. But everything out there is like this. Life doesn't have to be so difficult. If we can just occasionally stop that mind chatter and rest in the silence and simplicity that are always available, we will be amazed at the miracles that are possible, the miracles that are out there. It's raining miracles all the time. We are living in the Garden of Eden all the time. We just aren't aware of it. We're always looking for the perfect job, the perfect friends, the perfect love. The truth is that they're right there where we are right now, if we just don't project chaos and fear and imperfection on these outer circumstances. Most of our perceived problems stem not from the world out there, but from a false sense of the world right here, the illusions. By going within, we tap into the truth about who we are and what the world is, and it's all good. This higher consciousness will allow you to be in the world, but not of it. You will more often be able to live in the peace of the blue skies, untroubled by the clouds, which are there, for sure, but you will not be affected by them. You'll be healed. Your thoughts, your feelings will then get healed. This is spiritual evolution. That's what's possible for you. Happiness, harmony, health, and the ability to maintain this state wherever you go and amidst whatever is happening, always. This is seeing the truth of what is. This is seeing through the illusions. This is what in the East they call enlightenment. This is what in the Bible is called the Garden of Eden, the heaven on earth state. So keep on keeping on at this time of Lent. It's your time to evolve into the person that you deserve to be. Amen.